Welcome to the latest Superintendent's Update. My name is Brian Whiston, Superintendent of Dearborn Schools. I'm joined by Jeff Burek, who's Director of Operations. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Superintendent Whiston.
All right, so today we're talking about facilities, and we're talking about, we have a handful of facilities around 10 years old, some more in the 10 to 20 range, but a lot of them that are approaching 70 to 90 years old. The district historically has invested $4 to $5 million a year into facilities, but because of the lack of state funding and because our funding cuts over the last 5 years, we've been investing more like $1 to $2 million. What impact does that have on our facilities?
Well, through the age of our buildings, it's been detrimental. It's harder to keep up with the age of the buildings and the number of the buildings. We have 32 buildings in the district. It's very difficult to spread that type of money around to see that everything's covered.
For example, we just had a problem over at Dearborn High, loss of power, had to spend $50,000 or so to get that put up, and you didn't have any money to do that.
Exactly. That's the type of infrastructure needs that we're starting to see over these years.
And if we don't invest in parking lots and in roofs and those kinds of things, if you don't fix those as they develop into problems, they become more expensive because you haven't stayed on top of maintenance.
Exactly. Luckily, we've been able to, the last 30 years, invest, like you say, somewhat of the money, but as we've put more money into education and teachers, we've had to divert those funds from building and site and capital improvements to the classroom, which subsequently has basically been detrimental to our buildings, as you've mentioned.
And in terms of buses, I know historically the district had about 100 buses, like to drive them for about 10 years, so about 10 years a bus, but I had to up that to 13, 14, 15 years because we haven't bought very many, if any, buses in the last 5 years.
No, we have not invested in buses in the last 4 years. We were on a 10-year replacement schedule, but the last 4 years we have not been able to. So if we invest in buses now to get back onto that schedule, we would be looking at purchasing 25 to 30 buses.
Okay. So talk to me about, the age of buildings and why it's important to keep those buildings up to date and why if you don't spend money as you go, it costs more later on.
Well, one thing is roofs. If we don't invest in roofs, again, you have water damage into the buildings that in turn we have ceiling damage, painting, walls, carpeting. So you have to invest some money. Again, if you don't do that, the children are going to suffer as far as in the classroom because we can't give them an environment that's conducive to learning. So that's why we always have to spend a certain amount of money for just general maintenance over the years to basically give our children the type of environment we want to see them learn in.
So if we don't have the resources out of our operational budget to take care of the roofs and the parking lots and the boilers and the heating, the cooling, the classroom, the ceiling tiles, all those kinds of things, what's our option?
Well, we'd have to go to the taxpayers and maybe look at a bond to help support these infrastructure needs, whether it's a long-term, short-term bond, but we do need some financing to help us through these times because without the infrastructure upgrades or just to maintain, our buildings will start to deteriorate over the years just because of the age.
We're pretty lucky in Dearborn. We have some great-looking old buildings that are really kind of historical that really make Dearborn stand out, and it's a neat opportunity to go to school in buildings like Fortson and some of the older buildings. But with that comes the additional cost, as we were talking about, and we haven't been able to invest in the buildings. But I want to congratulate you and your maintenance teams and staffs, your engineers, and all the people that work in operations, because you go into any of our buildings, they do look outstanding. And I think that's a credit to you and your team for the good work they do day to day to stay on top of the buildings. But I know your department has faced cuts. You have less people to do the work. That's because we're trying to focus as much money on the classroom. So certainly congratulations to all your team for the good work they do. So we're going to have to look at a bond or something to fix this because we really do need to invest $4 to $5 million a year just in upkeep of the buildings so that they maintain the integrity of the buildings. And if we don't do that, you're saying we're going to be spending more money in the long run because, as you mentioned, if a roof leaks and we don't fix it, then all of a sudden you've got damage inside of the building. So.
Exactly. The example you brought up at Dearborn High, that was something that we can't anticipate, and you have to have a sizable amount of money just to be able to fix that during the school year.
What other problems have come up this year besides Dearborn High? There's been some water main breaks, breaks over at
Smith School.
Smith
Middle School. We had 2 water main breaks on the same line, and we are looking to replace that this year. And I think that one line has probably 3 or 4 patches on it, so we're on borrowed time. Again, an infrastructure need that people don't see, but is there. We also had a boiler at one of our schools we had to retube, and that was a costly item, and that happened during the school year. Luckily, we had time enough before the winter season came to be able to repair that boiler before we needed to put both boilers online.
Okay. Well, it looks like we have been working on a bond issue that will be taking information to the board in March so that we can live up to our responsibilities of keeping our buildings up to date and in terms of buses as well. So more information will be coming out about that in the near future. But again, congratulations to you and all your team for the great work you do in keeping our older buildings looking great. So,
thank you very much.
All right, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a quick update on facilities with Jeff Burek. My name is Brian Whiston, Superintendent of Dearborn Schools, and thank you for watching this update.